Greetings and salutations. I'm Gwenn Wycoff, representing Charles Arthur Enterprises. We sell a book called The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Everything you ever wanted to know about inheritance and more. And it's a subject that the rich and the famous have almost deleted from the public perception. So it's a good book to have, and if you've got inheritance issues, please get Volume 1. Everybody should have Volume 1. I'm talking today about Rome, women, and trust. And all these things have great impact on how we live our lives today. So since we're going to be talking about Rome, we need to go back to Rome. And since I can't bring Rome to you, we're going to do it in your imagination. So please take a ride with me back to the Roman Colosseum. That big round stone structure in Rome where the gladiators fought to the death in the middle and where crowds of people were inside the Colosseum. And the emperor sat in his throne and he decided who would live and who would die with his thumbs up and his thumbs down. This is Rome. And if you notice the crowds, they're very, very drunk. And if you notice the crowds, they have women and men in them. Okay, so we have gotten our fill of gladiators killing each other. So now we're going to leave the Colosseum. We're going to walk on the dusty and cobble roads. And on our left, we're going to pass a great big huge vat. And the vat is going to be filled with grapes that have been maybe fermenting. And inside this huge vat are slave girls, and they are stomping on the grapes, and slave boys and slave girls are filling their buckets from the spigots at the bottom of this great big barrel. And now as we move past that, we follow these slaves with their kegs of wine and however they're carrying it to the great big banquet table that is being offered by one of the senators, the Roman senators. And there we see women all dressed up in beautiful clothing, and we see the slave girls that are taking care of delivering the food and taking care of the guests. And as we participate in this party, we get very full, and we go to the vomitorium, and we vomit, and then we come back and we drink, and we eat, and we do it all over again. This is ancient Rome. This is how it was. Now I want you to notice that women were there and men were there. The women were slaves and the women were elegant and had money. So there were two classes. There were also slave men, but we're not going to concentrate on them. We're going to concentrate on how come the women and the women were in two different categories. And it goes like this. A big, heavy, muscular Roman soldier. He got married, and he got a villa just outside of Rome, and he got a beautiful wife, and he comes home from the war, and she's just giving birth to a baby girl. Well, the Roman soldier's got a problem. The problem is the baby girl has no property rights. She will go through life having to be taken care of, no matter how old she is, no matter how skilled she is. Now, what in the world are property rights? Property rights include the legal rights to acquire, own, sell, transfer property, collect and keep rents, keep one's wages, and make contracts and bring lawsuits. Women had no right in Rome to do this. They had no right in Greece. They had no right in Egypt. It goes on and on. This is called property rights. So what did this big brute of a Roman soldier do when he got his baby girl? Well, he looked down in her eyes and he realized that he fell in love immediately. And he loved his wife. And so he had to rig a system so his baby girl would not be a slave girl, that she would be one of those elegant ladies. And the way he was going to do that is he's going to form a trust. Now, the trust is made by him giving the responsibility of his daughter to a trustee. Of course, a trustee. And the trustee handled all her property rights. So it had to be a man. Property rights include the legal right to acquire, own, sell, and transfer property, collect and keep rents, keep one's wages, contracts, and bring lawsuits. This is a trustee, okay? And this trustee would be my trustee if we were back in Rome, and he would collect and keep rents, keep one's wages. So if I had to do anything, he would get the wages. He would keep them. And make contracts and bring lawsuits. He would do that, and he would also acquire, own, and sell and transfer property. This is the villa that the little baby's father is going to give to the trustee to make sure she has a place to live the rest of her life. That is how it was in Rome. Now, that may be a very interesting thing to you, because that's what a trustee does. But we're going to leave Rome, and we're going to find out how else this fantastic setup goes, because the trustee has to protect the little baby, has to protect the woman, and when she gets married, he's still her trustee. So zooming out of Rome, we are now going to go to England. And we're going to go there just when the Crusades start, and that is in the 1200s. The Crusades lasted 200 years. Now, you must remember, the women have no property rights, even in England. So the kings and the queens were very scheming. They were very clever. They were very evil. And I know this because I have the Book of Queens. So what they did is they got in league with the Pope, who thought it was a good idea to have a war. And everybody should go and conquer the infidel down in Jerusalem and reclaim Jerusalem. That sucked the men out of England down to the Crusades. A lot of them got killed. But the women, they were left there, and they had no man, they had no property rights, and so their property was confiscated. Yes, confiscated. Because they had no property rights. So that was a nice little scheme for the kings and the queens, and they were onto it for 200 years. And in those 200 years, there are many laws on the books of property rights. But over 200 years, the people sort of got smart about it. And they decided that if the men were going to war, then the men were going to put their property rights in the hands of the clergy. So the Catholics got to be the trustees of the properties, so the women would not lose the property if they were killed, if their husbands were killed. And this is where there was a lot of laws where the kings were trying to pass laws that could not happen, and the clergy got involved. And if you study trust law in England, you'll find that yes, you can, and no, you can't, and certain years you can, and certain years you can't. It was all about property rights and confiscating all the money, all the property, confiscating the wives, confiscating the daughters. All right, now we're going to zoom some more. We like to fly, so we're going to fly across the pond. The pond is the name that the English called the Atlantic Ocean. And so we are zooming across the pond, and we're going from the 1200s to the 1600s, and we're going to land feet first in Salem, right? And what was happening in Salem in the 1600s? We were having dunking parties. We were killing women and accusing them of being witches. Actually, accusing them of being witches and killing them. Oh, are you getting a hint? What do you think this might have been about? Aha, we see a pattern here. So some researchers got a hold of the Salem tax records. not too long ago, maybe in the last 20 years. And what did they find out? These were all widows. They killed the widows. Why? Because the wicked mayor wanted the property. Yes. So it was all about confiscation of property because women did not have rights. And then in the 1900s, something magical happened. There was a thing called women's suffrage. And when women got to vote, they also got property rights. And the property rights are, we want to make sure we get this straight, property rights include the right to acquire, own, sell, and transfer property, which is that. Okay? Collect and keep rents, which is that. And keep one's wages and make contracts and bring lawsuits. So now it is, I'll trade you this silly piece of paper for my assets. Give me my assets. I must have my assets. This is my property, and this is my wages and my money. Yes, all mine. That's the 1900s. Well, what happened after that? Well, we kept trusts. We didn't get rid of trusts because we found out that if we put our property to a third party, if he has my property, whether I'm a woman or a man, that property is safer if I go out and I get into an accident or I get sued or whatever. I don't have it. It's in his name. He's the trustee. This is why this is a very valuable trick. Okay, it's a trick. It's a legal trick. Very, very legal, and lots of people do it. So he's got the assets. I'm sued, and I got nothing. Maybe I have a little bit. Maybe I have, what would I have? Oh, nothing. Okay. So you can sue me all you want. You get nothing because he's got all my assets and they are under his name. They are legally his name. Okay? Now, if I have children, those assets are going to pass to my children. Right? And that's how that works. And a lot of people do that. It's called asset separation, asset protection. It's a great thing. Okay, now, these are my assets, and you are not a trustee again, all right? These are mine, okay? I earned all this. This is taxable if I own it, isn't it? And if I own this, it's taxable, all right? But if it's not mine, I can't be taxed on it, right? That's how that works. Of course, it's not that simple. You got to know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be in great trouble. But the issue of having a trust and how a trust works is an extremely important thing for people to understand. And The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1, will tell you everything you need to know about passing on wealth. And if you get Volume 2, it's very heavy, very technical, has a lot of legal references in it, a lot of experience, a lot of stories, lots of forms. But really, you don't need that. You need Volume 1, so you know how to pass on wealth, because without knowing how to do that, we do not have a future. The government has taken our future. Do you want a future? Do you want your children to have a future? Get on to passing on wealth.